Hey Sabrina,
Hey Mira,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New
I
Year.
can't believe it's already 2023.
Yeah, time has really flown.
Yeah.
What'd you do for New Year's?
Um, I had a call with my family. I danced with my friends.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, what'd you do?
Yeah, I went to Georgia and it was really warm. It was like my first January in a warm environment.
Oh
So
man. So not a snowy New Year's.
no, it was really jarring, just as a native New Yorker, right? Oh man. So Mira, today we have a day off, but there's many calls for it to actually be a day on.
Yes. We didn't want to miss the chance to mark MLK Day with a special PS Weekly episode devoted to an aspect of MLK's legacy that isn't as regularly studied as, say, his I Have a Dream speech or his letter from a Birmingham jail. Today we're focusing on how MLK and other leaders of the civil rights movement organized, which I know you're acquainted with.
Yes, indeed. Most people are familiar with MLK's approach of nonviolent demonstration, but there's a deeper strategy there, which he summarized in 6 steps: the 6 steps of nonviolent social change.
Sabrina, when did you learn about these steps?
Yeah, Mira, I remember actually. It was August 2018, and I was a part of a group called Teens Take Charge, a student led movement for educational equity. And I had just graduated from high school, and I was facilitating a leadership retreat with the incoming high school leaders to gear up for a new year of organizing. We were set to renew our fight for integration in New York City public high schools. And yeah, we were in a small room, and we were a diverse group of 15 or so passionate high school students. And it was just palpable in the air, the need to do something, anything that would make a difference. But, with this energy also came an understanding that to be effective as an organization, we needed guiding principles, and we needed to learn from those who came before us.
I see. So what did that look like?
Well, I actually went looking for lessons from history, and I came across Dr. King's 6 steps, which struck me as a really useful blueprint for our organizing. So I led a workshop about them that day, and the students really embraced them. From then on, Dr. King's 6 steps for nonviolent social change grounded us and gave us a plan for how to advocate for policy change.
That's really amazing. Let's take a deeper look at these 6 steps and examine how we can use the teachings of the civil rights movement to guide our actions today. From the Miseducation podcast, you're listening to PS Weekly. I'm Mira Gordon.
And I'm Sabrina DeKenney.
Okay, so I'm familiar with Dr. King and the civil rights movement, but I don't actually know a whole lot about these 6 steps. What's step 1?
Step 1 is information gathering, which makes sense. If you're going to go out and advocate for a solution, you first have to deeply understand the problem. And what's also important here, King said you have to become an expert at your opponent's position.
Right. Because if you don't know what their argument is, say, for keeping the status quo, it's hard to know how best to combat it.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you. So what's step 2?
Yeah. Step 2 is education. Once you've done your homework on the issue and you have a clear grasp of the problem, you have to educate others. And the idea here is that as you do this educating, you'll win supporters, other people who have been affected by the same problem. And they may not even all know the ways they've been impacted. So it's your job to educate them and convince them to join you.
So what's an example? What does step 2 look like in action?
Well, it can take all sorts of forms. Flyers, town hall meetings, canvassing, or even one-on-one conversations. With Teens Take Charge, we decided to hold free community events in public library branches where students could, get on stage and share personal testimonies about inequities in the school system. The goal was to educate the audience members and rally their support for our cause.
I recall seeing some videos of you doing that. You're quite the spoken word artist.
Oh, yikes, man.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, first, information gathering, then education. So what's step 3?
Step 3 is personal commitment. The idea is that you need to consistently examine your own motives and reaffirm your faith and dedication to upholding the principles of nonviolence. Every day brings new challenges, But King, he even goes as far to say, prepare yourself to accept suffering if necessary in your work for justice.
That's interesting that it's listed as its own step, since it's more internal and personal.
Right. And I was thinking it actually might be the most crucial step. So Mira, there's mental preparation and acceptance of the risk you're taking. We have to remember that the civil rights leaders, right, in the 50s and 60s often put their bodies, and in some cases, of course, their lives on the line.
Definitely. We'll be right back with steps 4 through 6. Do you enjoy this podcast? Do us a big favor that just takes a couple of seconds. On your podcast app, search for Miseducation from The Bell. Since you're listening right now, you're probably already on our page. Unless you're streaming from our website, which is cool too. For those of you using Spotify or Apple Podcasts, tap the button that says follow or the plus sign in the top right corner of your screen. This will ensure that you never miss an episode. And one more thing. If you're on our Apple Podcast page, go ahead and scroll down past the recent episodes to the ratings and reviews section. Tap the star icon and give Miseducation a rating. 5 stars, we hope. It may not seem like much, but more ratings and reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners find our show. We couldn't do this without the support of you, our listeners. So from all of us at Miseducation, a sincere thank you. All right, Sabrina. We're halfway through Dr. King's 6 steps of nonviolent social change. Information gathering, education, personal commitment. What's step 4?
Well, Mira, step 4 is negotiation. It might seem counterintuitive for negotiation to come this early, especially if your opponent is really stubborn or it seems just pretty much immovable. But the point is to clearly lay out what you want to change and why, and then to hear their perspective. You know, MLK, he was actually a master at this. At understanding his opponent's arguments, however wrong-headed or racist they were, and then pointing out their flaws or contradictions. And of course, he was really successful in eventually winning over his opponents, most notably with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. When you negotiate, you really want to try to be level-headed, a little humorous, and find common ground, not just the one you're standing on.
How did that step look in your work with Teens Take Charge?
Yeah, so we had lots of discussions with DOE officials. We presented our research, laid out the problems we wanted to address, and asked for their support in crafting feasible solutions. We couldn't integrate the New York City public school system without policy change. So we met them at the table. Over email, on the phone, we negotiated, and gave what we thought were reasonable deadlines for the completion of these goals. We aimed for really just constructive dialogue.
Gotcha. And they did everything you asked, right?
I wish it were that simple, Mira.
If only. Okay, well, what happened when they shot down your proposals or just weren't responsive?
Well, Mira, that's actually why we have step 5, direct action. Sometimes there comes a point when the opposition refuses to negotiate, or there are key issues they just won't budge on. This was certainly the case when it came to Jim Crow laws in the South. The goal of direct action is to pressure the opposition so they have no choice but to seek resolution. MLK actually coined the term creative tension. Essentially, you want to stage peaceful protests, sit-ins, boycott goods, and disrupt the economy. The Montgomery bus boycott is perhaps the most well-known example of a successful direct action, but there were hundreds of similar actions across the South and the North, too. In fact, the largest single demonstration of the civil rights movement took place right here in New York City.
That's right. Say more about that.
It was 1964, and for close to a decade, Black and Puerto Rican parents in New York City had been urging the Board of Ed to integrate schools, but they kept stalling and breaking promises. So on February 3rd, 1964, close to 500,000 children boycotted school.
Whenever I think about it, it's still just shocking what a huge number of students that was.
Right?
It's crazy. So what happened?
Yeah. So as with lots of civil rights demonstrations in that era, it was met with pretty significant white backlash. And ultimately, there was no major effort to integrate New York City schools, which is why all these decades later, Teens Take Charge and other student organizers were fighting for a lot of the same things. At one point, we staged a big protest on the steps of Tweed Courthouse. Man, I remember that day, the DOE headquarters, in response to the lack of action on their part, even after we followed the 4 steps.
That must have been an experience.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It definitely was. You see, like, Mira, students, they need to make their voices heard, and peaceful protest is really what draws the attention of the opposition.
So once the direct action is over, what's next?
So before we actually get to step 6, I should say that step 5 can last a bit of a long time, however long it takes to get your opponent to back down. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted more than a year before city leaders caved to the protesters' demands. And it doesn't always succeed. Sometimes supporters get tired and the movement sort of fizzles out. Which, again, is why I think that the 3rd step, personal commitment, is so important. This type of organizing truly is not for everyone. It takes real sacrifice. Yeah.
Definitely. But let's say the direct action works. You get back to the negotiating table, and this time you get what you asked for. So what's the last step?
So last step, reconciliation. The end goal here is not to remain in a perpetual state of like war and tension, right? You seek to reconcile with your opponents. Think of it like this. Don't just see the people you're fighting against. See the system. The life experiences that shaped your opponents, each step taken in this vast universe that led all parties to the position they're presently in.
Wow. This has been a really informative conversation. Thank you. Listeners, I'd be curious to know what you learned here. Have you seen examples of the 6 steps in action? Are you motivated to incorporate them in your own fight for change in the world? Let us know. You can DM us at miseducationpod or send an email to podcast@bellvoices.org.
So Mira, before we go, there's a famous quote from Reverend King's letter from the Birmingham Jail that I learned in high school. And listeners, Mira and I would like to share this with you today.
Yeah, so this is the quote. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham.
To learn more about MLK's 6 steps, his principles of nonviolence, and more, visit thekingcenter.org. Miseducation is a production of The Bell. You can learn more about us at bellvoices.org, and if you're not doing so already, follow us at miseducationpod on social media.
The Bell is currently working with partners across the city to address the youth journalism gap. Please reach out if you'd like to get involved. You can DM us or email info@bellvoices.org. Our work is made possible in part by the Summerfield Foundation, the Pinkerton Foundation, and FJC.
Today's episode was reported and produced by Mira Gordon with help from Taylor McGraw. Music from Blue Dot Sessions and Lenz Lewis. MLK's 6 steps adapted from the King Center. I'm your co-host, Sabrina Duquesne.
And I'm your co-host, Mira Gordon.
See you next week.